Hi, Dan Daly on the other side of the line. Marcus Marthaler here. Hope you're well.
So, Marcus,
So today we are gonna talk with you about some myth busting or some things which I've done it with Abby and I've done it with Jan Wolfgarten and with Alex as well just recently. It's the myth busting and it is a format which apparently a lot of people like. So I have in the myth busting first myth which I want to talk about is on in my Instagram account or YouTube. I have a lot of comments and they come up with the bubbles around your hands, and then they say, how do you get? What is there a technique or is there something or drill which I can do to get rid of the bubbles around my hands? And so I want to bring that question to you. What do you think about bubbles around your hand?
the first place I start with a lot of the athletes, swimmers that I work with is efficiency. And we look at entry. So we kind of start from the fingertips back. We look at how they're entering the water. And at sub-maximal speeds, you shouldn't be working that hard. You should be slipping your hand into the water very gracefully. I encourage them to kind of be like stealth about it and sneaky. And I don't want to see a lot of air entering the water. So when we look at bubbles are drawing air into the water. It's creating drag. It's creating turbulence. And there's less water to grab. You're kind of churning it all up. And essentially, you're pulling some air with that water. So from an efficiency standpoint, when we're starting out, I like to see freestylers, all swimmers, reducing the amount of bubbles and air that they're pulling into the water to be more efficient and to decrease drag.
Okay, good. But I usually, we both started off very young when we were children. For us, when I was a child, or when we were like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, when we started to be good, and the youth, all these kind of things, no one talked about the bubbles. I think it was already a topic back then, but no one spoke about the topic about the bubbles. We also did video analysis and everything like that, or we checked our technique underwater and how it looks, but bubbles was not such a thing. So I put actually a statement out. I hear you, and I would agree with that. It's more efficient because bubbles, it's like pushing air through, or like it's like a cushion, and the air usually is a zero. Like you have no push there if you push air through the water, so you lose efficiency. So I would agree with that, but I would argue that you would have other problems beforehand to solve before you want to specifically find a drill to solve the bubbles.
Yeah, if you're so fixated on these details, you might be getting lost in the weeds. Because that's to your point, we probably want to be thinking about the entry, and bubbles could be a symptom of some type of entry issue. But we don't want to be so fixated on it. Underwater video is so common now, and we live on social media with this content, and people are taking a look at it, and they can see it, they can comment on it in a way that we didn't always have. And maybe they're getting fixated on certain details that don't matter as much, and they're losing sight of the style of swimming that person's using, how fast or slow that they might be going, and whether or not the bubbles are relevant. Because in a sprint, the 50-meter swim is a splash and dash. It's referred to as a splash and dash. You're churning water. You're going fast. It's a high cadence. It's a high turnover. You're not worried, you're churning up the water. It looks like a school of sharks kind of racing across the water at the surface. And they're creating a lot of turbulence. But it's short-lived. So it depends on how fast you're going. Depends on your technique. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I would agree, actually. In the sprint, obviously, yes, when you look carefully enough, you see the bubbles here are non-existent, and usually bubbles are coming from here. So they are because of the fast movement which is involved in that. When you then take out the video for me when I do super slow swimming or I do a long distance, then you see virtually no bubbles nowhere. But actually, it is all, yes, to the bubbles. And there I agree, it has a lot to do also with the hand entry, how it enters. And there is another myth which I can just come into as well, or bring into the picture, is the splashing when entering the water. So I had also comments. So there is one video, I will show it also. There's one video where I swim in Lake Lucerne in Switzerland, and it's from the side, and where I would have a very, very good pace, very fast pace, and it's kind of ketchupy kind of style. And yes, it does have a sound, and it does have a bit of splash. And where do you stand on that? Because the comments were, oh, that is not efficient because he splashes too much.
Yeah, you get a lot of comments on social media, and it's like, all right, well, do you know what the goal here is? Do you know what that person's background is? What are they trying to accomplish? Maybe this person's going like sub-minute 100 meters pace, and it's like, all right, well, we can try to reduce the splash, but they're swimming faster than most people do for whatever you're out there doing a 5 or 10K. So I think it depends. In the triathlon and open water world, we need to consider chop of the water because that's going to affect your entry and how you enter the water. We need to take a look at stroke rate. A lot of open water swimmers might be spinning at 70, 90 strokes per minute. They might be using more of a straight arm technique. They might be keeping their cadence high to overcome some of the chop and the current. They might be wearing a wetsuit. Your arm recovery might be straighter as a result of that. So it depends on all of those things. Before you can make a comment, it's like, what are they trying to accomplish? What are the conditions? What are the goal? There might be some splashing. Sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. There's some world-class swimmers who you might look at their technique and you criticize it, but they're going at world-class pace. So do we need to be changing that?
That's a good point, actually. I like that. Well, listen, for me, in essence, it is. I think they are linked. They're intertwined. I think that's what I'm saying. And you also said that before. There are bigger, in that sense, bigger fish to fry when it comes to technique. So if you start a beginner triathlete or a triathlete or an open water swimmer, which is not at the level as we were or we are back in the youth time or now, if you're not there, then if you get caught up with this, you lose yourself because there is other things or bigger fish to fry. That's like high elbow catch, rhythm, entering the water properly, go to the front parallel to the surface, get a proper catch and accelerate through the water backwards. So you have a rhythm like 1, 2, like in butterfly. You have it also in freestyle where you go 1, 2, and you have the 2. The pronunciation is on the push, on the end phase. Funny enough, people will realize, this is my opinion, that if they do all this properly, like a proper hand entry, gliding to the front to catch it, and then have a proper catch, high elbow, straight arm, and have a proper pull through to the end, they might end up with solving the bubbles around the hands and even the splashing when entering the water. I think it intertwined. I think that is my opinion about it.
Yeah, there's a ripple effect. I like to go fingertips back. So what we're doing from the entry standpoint, that's going to affect how much air you're pulling into the water. How hard are you pulling? What's your stroke rate like? What type of recovery are you using? If you're hitting and slapping the water, you're fighting the water to some extent. It's going to push back a little bit. We know what it feels like to smack the water or to belly flop, and the sting or the force that you feel against your hand. It doesn't feel good. If you think of like diving into the water, it feels nicer to kind of dive in on an angle and kind of slip through like a narrow space. Mm-hmm. The same is true with your hand. Your hand is essentially diving into the water when you recover. So you can do that gracefully at certain speeds, but at some point, if you need to pick up your stroke rate, you might need to be a little bit more aggressive with how that arm comes around and gets back in. And there might be more slapping, but maybe there's a cost to be paid for that, and it's not as sustainable. So it's really just kind of on a spectrum, like a lot of the topics that we've talked about. There may not be one right way to do it. Mm-hmm. There may be several options depending on what your goals are, the conditions, your ability, how fast you're going. So you kind of have to take it all in.
Good. I think I would want to leave it with the two statements which we made, mine and yours, where we have it. I think I wouldn't go too much into details. I guess the main thing is if you're gonna be focused on too much details like that at a certain like. It depends on where you stand in the whole scenario. If you're a pro and you talk about the bubbles of your hands, it makes more sense. If you're just a beginner and you start to think about that, you go down a rabbit hole, in my opinion, I think. I guess that would be it from my side for these topics. And it's interesting always to see these comments. That's why I'm doing the myth busting thing.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to play with it. See how it feels to go slow. Try not to make any. See how it changes when you go fast, and don't be so quick to jump to conclusions. It depends.
So true. Couldn't have said it better. Thanks very much for this call, and on to next time.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thanks. Cheers.